Hello once again, witchy people. Today I'm back to talk about herbs, and this is to do with the Thoughts for New Witches little series that I've decided to do. For many witches, herbs are very important. What I would like to stress is that growing herbs or collecting herbs and plants from hedgerows does not make you a hedge witch. That is not the definition of a hedge witch. If you want to know the definition of a hedge witch, in my point of view, look it up. I've done a video, what is a hedge witch? And I've also done a video, what I don't do, rather than what I do do. So hedge witch is basically you straddle the hedge between two worlds. And for me, that's the world between the living and the dead. Which is why I do a lot of divination and scrying. Anyway, so witches that work with herbs can be green witches, kitchen witches, herbal witches, eclectic witches, any witch. You know, you don't have to be a certain tradition or a certain path to use herbs. But let's get down to very basics. You don't need to grow your own herbs. If you don't want to, you can buy them. Now, when I very first decided to really grow my own herbs and start using the herbs that I grew, I lived in a flat, so a small apartment, and the only things I grew indoors were 3 herbs, and I grew rosemary because my grandfather told me that it was one of the most important herbs, that it represented family, ancestors, and was good for protection. You always grew it, if you could, by your door or in your garden. Secondly, I had basil, because for me basil is the most, or one of the most protective herbs there is. It's incredibly useful. Thirdly, I grew what I call coriander. I think Americans call it cilantro. So it's the coriander leaf, the green coriander leaf, and I grew coriander because it's my favourite herb to eat. That and rosemary. So, you know, those were the only three things that I grew on my windowsill, and I actually bought these herbs in small pots from my local supermarket in the food section, in the fruit and veg section. They were like, oh, buy this, freshest you can get, you know, buy this, cut it off, you know, take it home, cut it apart and use it. And I grew mine. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with not growing a herb from seed, or any plant that you use from seed. It's very much okay to go and forage, or, you know, if you see it in someone else's garden, you can say, do you mind I have a bit of that? You know, when you cut that back, or when that's died back for the winter, can I have a small piece? Many of the ones that I have are from when I pruned back my lilac trees. I have lilac ones, but a lot of them are for when I've been walking in the forest. I live quite close to the New Forest and near Burley, and I found some beautiful sticks on the ground and I picked them up. So it's okay not to grow your own. It's okay to buy dried. It's okay to go to your dried herb section in your supermarket and buy a bottle of herbs, or a box of herbs, or a sachet of herbs. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people say that rosemary is a herb that can replace any other herb. So if you haven't got a certain herb, you can use rosemary instead in place of a herb. I believe that you can do that with any herb, because once again, with anything to do with your plant, you have to use what feels right for you, gives you the right energy and aligns with your own energy. So for instance, I said that family is represented for me by the herb rosemary, and ancestry, because rosemary is for remembrance. So for instance, I said I only use rosemary for dealing and for ancestry work or for family work, and you say, well, no, I don't agree with that. I would like to use rosemary because for me it feels like it's a drawing herb. It draws things to you, like luck or money or whatever. Then that's what you use it for, because you have to. I'm trying to think of the right word, and the only thing I can think of is jive. You have to jive. You know, you have to jive with the herb. You have to know how it feels to you. And in that sense, any herb can represent anything and replace any other herb that someone tells you it's used for, because once again, there's no point using a herb or anything else if what you are told it's used for, you don't feel. It doesn't feel right to you. If it doesn't feel right to you, there's no point using it for that purpose. So you use what it is that connects you to whatever spell work you're using or whatever you're using the herb for. You don't necessarily need to cleanse herbs. Some people do. I find it quite a difficult thing. The only way really you can cleanse herbs, I think, if they're dried herbs, is if you use smoke or intent. Something else I would like to say is people use a lot of herbs as incense. Please do not burn herbs. Please do not burn herbs as an incense straight onto charcoal or under a heat disc or whatever, because all you will do is burn the herb and it will smell darn awful. Unless you want to give that a go. If that's what you're looking for, then go ahead. Like I said, one of the cheapest and greatest ways I think to buy herbs is when you are in the supermarket and they ask, oh, this goes out of date soon, so it's half price, and then you get these little bottles of herbs, whether it's the supermarket's own brand or is it Schwartz, do the little herbs, I can't remember now, whatever herb company it is that's popular, that you are, and they say, oh, this goes out of date in a month's time or whatever, so we're selling it off half price or selling it off for a penny or whatever. Pick it up. You're not eating these herbs, or you shouldn't be. If you're using them in spellcraft, then they don't need to be in date. You know, a dried herb is just that. It's a dried herb. It doesn't lose or dissipate its energy as far as I'm concerned. Fresh versus dried. A lot of times, it also depends on how you're using the herb during spell work. If you are making an incense, and that is using all the right powders and such like, then, you know, obviously for the most part dried herbs. If you're using poppets and stuff like, and sometimes it's nice to have fresh herbs, then use fresh herbs. If you're making a posy, you use a fresh herb, but you don't have to. You could use a dry herb. So, like I say, fresh versus dried, I don't think one is any better than the other. It depends what you're using the herb for. Now, obviously, there are a lot. I use herbs as a word to envelop and describe any plant that you are using. Any part of a plant that you are using, whether it's bark or the stem or the leaf or the flower, anything. A herb isn't something, as far as I'm concerned, that is an edible herb. You can use anything. And obviously one of the best ways is to go foraging because it's cheap. If I go out foraging for herbs or any plant matter, on the way to the pub, there is some beautiful gorse bushes, and I've collected gorse, especially if it's growing over the pathway and it is blocking your pathway, then it's okay as far as I'm concerned to cut it back. I will always leave an offering, and I think that's because, once again, it's to do with my grandfather. My grandfather always told me, leave something for the little folk, because you don't want to take away from them. and not leave anything back, and that kind of stuck. You know, it's one of those things that really stuck with me. You know, it's like never gather ash during a thunderstorm. One of those, I never gather ash wood during a thunderstorm. But yeah, and when people say, "Oh, what do you leave?" I can leave some very small chips of crystal stones. You can buy little bags of little chips of stones very inexpensively. That's quite a good thing to leave. If you are leaving something as a kind of offering to say thank you for letting me, even if it's you're leaving it for the plant to say thank you for the plant for taking it away, you need to leave something that is not going to interfere with the environment. So don't go leaving candles burning and stuff, like, obviously, because that, apart from the fire hazard, you don't want to leave anything that is going to harm any animal that's nearby or interact with the soil in such a way that's going to harm it. For instance, I do quite often leave pennies with a pentagram on them, and it's just a normal penny with a pentagram in indelible marker on it, and I sometimes leave those, and I've gone back a year later and still found these pennies because they have the pentagram on. People just don't touch them, they leave them alone. But I wouldn't leave it in certain types of soil because it would affect the plants that grew there because of the metal content of the penny. Another good way is to have small pieces of wood. If you, like, when I prune back my trees, see, I don't have to leave anything when I prune back my trees because I am doing it for them. So it's a symbiotic relationship. I'm taking something from them, but I'm also, you know, letting the light into in between the branches and letting it grow. So I tend not to leave anything there, but what I can do is take small bits of wood and draw pentagrams or whatever symbol it is that you like, that you find melds with your path, and leave the small piece of wood as an offering because it will break down into the soil. You can leave small flowers, anything like that, but then you'd have to leave something if you pick the flowers. People say, well, surely that kind of like doesn't meld with your path if you buy things off of someone else. Well, no, because you are giving money for a product, so you know you're just leaving an offering in a different way. So no, you don't have to worry about herbs being not grown by yourself, being bought from someone else, being dried or fresh, depending on obviously how you need to use them. And like I said, I do think it is quite important to, if you are working closely with your environment, then the best thing you can do is forage for plant matter, herbs and plants, because they are going to have the energy of you around them. See what I mean? They are in your location, and so this is your home, this is where you have your feelings and your life, so that you may find that has a better energy for you. And I talk about energy now. A lot of people say, what do you mean it has an energy? I think everything has a vibration or an energy or a feeling. Even a piece of paper, you hold a piece of paper and it's almost like when you open a fresh book and there's that feeling you get. And it's okay, so maybe some people don't. When we were very, very small, we used to go tree hugging. I was raised as a bit of a hippie. So, and a friend of my mum's used to take us out to this beautiful tree. And she said, stand near the tree, but don't touch the tree, and just close your eyes and put your hands out, your palms out to the tree, but don't touch it, and close your eyes and tell me what you feel. And you can feel the energy vibrations of anything, but especially with trees, because they are such, in the main, strong things. This is a big old tree. So, you know, if you think about if you can feel that vibrating away, you know, you're still away from a tree and you can feel those vibrations, that energy coming off of it, then, you know, even the smallest plant can have that energy. So, like I said, it's very, forage well, you know, if you can, please, but be very careful where you pick, who you pick from. Don't take anything without permission. If it's, you know, on private land, don't take anything without asking. But basically, you know, like I say, as with anything else, you do what is right for your path, what feels right, because if it doesn't feel right, it's not going to work for you. Always, as like I said, never ever use herbs for ingesting. If you are mixing them with oil to anoint things with, or to anoint yourself, or put them in bath water, make sure that you're not allergic. Make sure that, you know, basic things. If you've got like a cut in your hand or anything like that, then don't get the herbs near your cut, especially if you're allergic to them. Be very careful what you are picking outside. It's like I said, when I go to the forest, I pick from the ground. I don't pick off of a plant. It's what's already discarded on the ground, because I don't want to take away from something, some other animal or creature that's going to need what I am taking for my own selfish reasons. I think that's about it. Like I said, you don't have to grow it yourself. If you do, you can buy cheap, you can grow from seed if you want, you can buy it dry, buy it fresh, buy it from your supermarket, buy it out of date. It's okay. A herb is a herb is a herb is a herb. Is a plant. So there you go. Once again, don't be forced down, even if you follow a tradition, do not be forced down part of a path that doesn't feel comfortable for you. Because all you're going to be doing is you're going to be upsetting that balance, your own balance, and that will affect your energy balance, which will stop things working properly. There you go. That's it for now. Thank you for watching, witchy people. I will be back once again very soon. Bye bye now.